In the history of anime fighting games and fighting games in general, there are hits, there are misses, and then there are legends. And to be honest with you, I believe that Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 wasn't just a hit, it was a legend. It was one of the top 10 best selling fighting games ever. It finished the Naruto story before and with more style than the anime itself. And even years after its release, the community was still thriving due to stuff like modding, hosting tournaments, and people just keeping it alive off of pure passion alone. So when Bandai Namco and CyberConnect 2 announced a follow-up, a new game meant to be the ultimate celebration of the series, it felt like a sure thing. Like, how could you possibly fumble that? Well, my good sir, welcome to Naruto x Boruto Ultimate Ninja Storm Connections. A game that didn't just fumble the bag, it took the bag, set it on fire, then asked you for 60 bucks. My name is Black Senju, I'm in Priya and Brawlhalla, and I was one of the believers of that game. I pre-ordered the game as soon as the pre-order came out. I bought an Xbox Live subscription just for it. I even pre-made like 50 intros because I was ready to like daily upload and grind this game to a flip on YouTube. Maybe if the game wasn't such a big flop, I'd be a bigger YouTube today. Who knows? That aside, what I did learn from this game was a lesson in how to kill a legacy. This is the story of the Unfumbleable game that got fumbled. And hey brethren, do me a favor, drop a like, sub if you're new, and if you're one of those Clash Royale enjoyers or any of the other Supercell games, then use code BS in the shop. First, let's start with the most basic, most non-negotiable requirement for any online game in the modern era, and that is the ability to actually be able to play it. This game was called Connections. The marketing and the branding was all about like uniting players, celebrating the community, and bridging the gap between Naruto and Boruto. And you know what's craziest about this is that before this game came out, I basically dropped a video that went over all the changes, like Naruto Storm 4 versus Connections in 100 or however many seconds. I listed all the changes because I found like the other YouTubers were like milking it and beating around the bush, and I couldn't even find the changes myself. So in that video, people were already like commenting that the game was a cash grab and basically a reskin for Storm 4, and I was out there like defending the game, you know, like I was ready for it to be amazing based off the new stuff that they had added, you know, the changes to mechanics. So this isn't me coming in as a hater, like I didn't plan to come in and hate on this game. I was really hyped for this game, I was ready for this game. I never actually believed there was gonna be another Storm game in general, but then this is what we got in return. So on launch day, for a huge portion of the player base, especially on Xbox, the only thing connecting the community was regretting buying the game. Like there were people who bought the deluxe pass and paid like 120 or 180 for this whole package and couldn't play online. The servers were a disaster, people were getting disconnected constantly, there was unbearable lag, and matchmaking outright failed. And for weeks, this wasn't like a few hours of like launch day jitters. The servers were just cooked on release. Like there were people who I could fight fine in Storm 4, but ever since Connections has been out, it is yellow bar in Connections. Like I remember messing around and experimenting, and if you put your Xbox on South Korea and leave your game searching for like a really long time, you could find a match, but it was real laggy now because now you're fighting against somebody in South Korea. All these kind of stuff made it even more of a mess, you know. I personally was right in the middle of this issue because like I had built up like a whole content creation plan. Like I was gonna daily upload for a month. I had my intros ready, my schedule, I cleared it out, and then I booted up the game on Xbox, excited to like get my first ranked game up, and I got nothing. I sat there searching for matches 10, 15, 20 minutes and nothing. And when I finally did get a match, it would be so laggy that it was always reconnecting every second, or I'd get disconnected damn near instantly, you know. And I thought it was like on my end. Like I started blaming myself because There's no way a game releasing in the modern era would release in a state or in a way where half of its player base would be unable to connect to the servers. So it had to be a me thing, right? I was like, is it my internet? Is my Xbox broken? Did I set up something wrong? I spent days troubleshooting, messing with settings, when the problem wasn't me at all. The problem was that I had just paid $60 for a product that didn't work. The game called Connections that couldn't connect. Like, when this was going on, I had that hashtag going on, like connections can't connect, but obviously I was too small of a creator. We couldn't get like any noise out of them. The silence from the developers was so deafening. There was like no immediate tweet saying like, we're aware of the issue and we're working on it. No transparency, just radio silence while they left their players in the dark, feeling like we were getting scammed. This went on for like a whole month. A month where half of the player base, the Xbox players especially, were essentially locked out from playing the online experience, which they also paid for. And by the time they sorted all these things out, the damage was already done, the hype was already dead, the content creators which were like making stuff about it had already like moved on. Like, you cannot recover from a first impressions that bad. It tells your most dedicated fans that you didn't care enough to ensure that the game was fully functional and actually did function. And that right there, I believe, is the first and most catastrophic thing that I've ever seen in a new product releasing ever in my life. Like, I've never seen it that bad. Maybe except for Boruto though. So let's say you were actually able to get online, maybe you were one of the lucky ones on PlayStation, or you persevered through the lag. What did you find when you got there? It felt like a sequel that had amnesia or something. Because Naruto Storm Connections didn't fail to move the series forward, it like actively went backwards. Another heart of any fighting game is the ability to be able to play with friends. In Storm 4 we had like the private lobbies in Endless. They technically count as one. You could host tournaments, mess around with a group of friends, have custom rules or whatever. Storm Connections launched without that or the equivalent. Let me repeat that. I don't think you heard me, bro. They released a game in the modern era, in the big 2 free, with no way of playing with friends. Like, are you that stupid? I'm genuinely getting angry just going over that experience, and it's been 2 years. Like, let me try that again. At that time, your only options was ranked, which was like a sweaty nightmare due to the state of the game at the time, or you had player matches, PMs, which was just random matchmaking. You couldn't create a room for your community, you couldn't easily run tournaments, you couldn't chill and play with your friends without the fear of some random guy like running the most broken character, broken team, whatever, you know. Plus, in my personal opinion, it gets worse. Remember Switch Tech from Storm 4? That really cool, dynamic, and fun mechanic that let you basically preserve resources, you know, as long as you're technical enough to do it, you know. You could apply pressure in neutral, and it added like a whole layer of tactical depth to this game. They removed it, it was gone, vanished, and I guess for balance reasons. But my thing is, they didn't replace it with anything that was nearly as engaging or anything of the sort. They took a tool that players used and spent years mastering and gave them nothing in return. But I don't disagree with the fact that they removed it. If they believe that Switch Tech was breaking the game and it needed to go, then let it go, you know. That's my thoughts on it in general. So it's not that I'm mad that they removed it or anything. Now, I did hear through like the great grapevine that apparently CC2 or Bandai either asked the community with a poll, or they only asked like the really big creators, so not people like me, whether they wanted Switch Tech in the next game or not. And apparently not having Switch Tech won, but I have not found any proof of that. But I've heard it, and I feel as if I should put that out there. So now you'll know as much as me. And a lot of the gameplay changes that they made, and I listed it in that video, things that are perfectly fine within Storm 4, that they taken out, added, changed on release of Connections. Basically, the entirety of Connections slowly got reverted into Storm 4. For example, for me, the biggest thing that I noticed was how Connections released the counter for free. Like, you could do it for free, and then eventually they ended up reverting it to it being the equivalent of what it is in Storm 4. So it begs the question, what was the point in all that? So let's recap, right? They took away our community hubs. They stripped out mechanical depth, and they added insanely overtuned or undertuned mechanics just to revert them to the Storm 4 state after a while. This wasn't just a fumble, this was a conscious decision to deliver a lesser game for money. It was a regression packaged and sold as a celebration. Now for me, I've been playing Storm for a long time. I played Storm since Generations. That was the first Storm game that I played, and the part that stung me the most was the part that made Storm Connections more feel like a glorified DLC rather than a new game, right? Just look at the game. They reused assets. Reusing assets isn't inherently bad, but there's a difference between building on a foundation and then just copying and pasting the home up from a whole decade ago. Many characters, especially the characters that have been around since Storm 2, are still using the exact same ultimates, the same janky camera angles, the same crappy effects, whilst you've got new characters blowing up the planet with all their cinematic flair. And then you got specifically Orochimaru with his fake roller coaster dated in 2010, and it's embarrassing in 2025. But the recycling doesn't stop just there. Remember, one of the biggest selling points when they were advertising Connections was history mode. It was the definitive retelling of the entire Naruto saga, and what we got was a PowerPoint presentation. They look like they just took cutscenes from the animation and stripped out their voice acting, put their whatever voice acting there, and presented them as a series of static images with text boxes as a full price sequel. And that's unforgivable. And another big thing was the general voice acting coming from Storm 4 to Connection. Connection sounded like they didn't have a voice director. They just accepted whatever first attempt that they did. Some of the differences were so crazy. So while Storm 4 gave you a fully voiced cinematic boss battles that felt like you were playing the anime, Connections felt like you were reading a Wikipedia summary, you know? And then their next gen visuals, where were they? The character models, the stages, the particle effect, it looked nearly identical to Storm 4 outside of the 60 FPS. When you combine all these things, you have the reused ultimate, the guided story mode, the stagnant visuals. It is giving cash grab, and it's not giving anything else. And as such, I would like to publicly apologize to all the people that I debated in the comments that day, you know, of my own videos saying it's not a cash grab. In fact, there you go. I hope you feel better now. You were right. Okay, so next let's talk about when you could actually play online and could find a match, and for some reason it also wasn't lagging. This was for the very few people who experienced that on release. And this is where Connections revealed itself to be not just broken and lazy, but also kinda stupid. Because the core combat, the thing that you are doing for hundreds of matches, was a mess at launch. The meta was dominated by one thing, which was heavily armored jutsus. At the start of the game, it felt like damn near every character had a special move that would ignore all your attacks. And characters that didn't have that were just the worst characters in the game. You try to dash in, you get out prioritized. You throw out something in neutral, they just jutsu right through it. And to be honest, it's not really safe to throw out anything in neutral in any game, but this made it 40 times worse. The most reliable counterplay versus the armored jutsu spam wasn't some advanced skillful technique. You just had to do the same thing back. You see them charging a jutsu, you charge yours, you know, clash and then reset back to neutral and do it all over again. It just created this super shallow spam heavy neutral game where the best strategy was almost always a brainless one. It wasn't about outsmarting your opponent, it was about out-cheesing them. Now, to be 100% fair, no fighting game is perfectly balanced on release, and no fighting game is perfectly balanced anytime. And most fighting games that consider themselves perfectly balanced, I 100% guarantee you are 100% boring. And Storm 4 is no stranger to that. It had its fair share of broken characters. We all know about Kaguya literally changing the stage on you, but the difference is like expectation and response. Storm's 4 broken stuff felt like a part of its like chaotic, over the top charm, you know, and the community had adapted with the rules and tournaments, etc. But Connections, the broken stuff in there were made already to be frustrating, you know, and instead of like quick patches and like tuning down the worst offenders, we got silence, and then like they would eventually just sledgehammer. Instead of like carefully adjusting armored frame or added more direct counterplay, they removed it entirely, you know. They see a problem and they just delete it from the game rather than trying to actually balance it. It's like fixing by like complete amputation. This slow, clumsy response, then followed up by like deleting whatever problem it is, sends like a clear message that the devs don't listen and they weren't really invested in the competitive health of the game, which is common when it comes to anime arena fighters. They basically had already moved on. So basically you had a game that was a chore to actually play online, stripped of features that made its predecessor great and gave it depth. They built it up from recycled parts and they balanced it with finesse. Except that it was the same finesse that a wrecking ball had. It was like the perfect storm of incompetence. Get it? I really cooked with that. But to me, the real killer, the final nail in the coffin, was the fact that after all these issues, it had no safety net. Which brings us to our final and most important point. Now, I've thought about it a lot and I've come up with like a simple theory. For a game to survive in modern fighting game times, it needs to excel in at least one of these two areas. Area number one is to be an amazing game. Be so fun, so flashy, so packed with content and a spectacle for players that they forgive your flaws. Like, we will put up with balance issues and bugs because our core experience is just that good. This was Storm 4. Like, it was broken and an unbalanced mess at times, you know, but it was like, it was our broken and unbalanced mess, you know. It was so much fun, we didn't care.
Don't call yourself a ninja if that's the extent of your strength.
Speak for yourself, London sir. Speak for yourself.
Area 2 is to have a thriving competitive scene. Be a game that people play for the bag, you know. It doesn't have to be fun at all or balanced. But if you have like such a robust competitive circuit with real money, clout on the line, players will enjoy the BS. This to me is Brawlhalla. Let's be honest, if that game got rid of its competitive scene, it wouldn't be as popular as it is. And let's be even more honest, a lot of people call that game trash, and it is. I can personally vouch for the trashiness of that game, but the prize pools are so huge, so pro players are gonna grind it anyways. The scene stays alive, and it is what it is. The players are there for the bag, not for the fun experience. Now, if we hold Storm Connections to the same role, was it an amazing game? Was it a blast to play? No, not really. Like, it didn't add anything too crazy new. And we also been through the reasons it regressed, it recycled, it was super broken at launch. It was missing features that made Storm 4 special. And did it have a thriving competitive scene? Well, the answer to that is no. There's no official tournaments hosted by Bandai, CC2, any of those guys. No big prize pools, no roadmap for esports, anything like that, you know. The community has tried with like the competitive side, but without like developer support and without being like insanely good at the game and without like, and with the way that this game was treated initially, it is a ghost town. And the prize pools need to be big enough to pull people who are generally good at fighting games to come over here and try. And a community sized one is not gonna do that. Storm Connections failed in both areas. It wasn't fun enough to be a casual masterpiece, and it wasn't supported enough to be like a competitive titan. It was stuck in the worst place of anything, in the middle of nowhere. Like, it just didn't do anything. And you cannot be trash in 2 areas. You either have to reward me for being tortured in this game with the bag, or don't torture me. Like, Jump Force came out better than this. Jump Force was better than this on release. Anyways, that's why this game died. That's why the player count like plummeted. That's why even to this day, people are still avoiding this game. They took the legacy of one of the most successful anime arena fighters of all time, a game that rolled in Area 1, and then they delivered a sequel that captured nothing. No magic, no money, no reason to exist. It was a legendary fumble. And a fumble that big in 2023 is BS. So, moral of the story is, no legacy is unfumbleable. You cannot just slap a famous name on a lazy product and expect fans to cheer. I personally look back at those 50 video intros that I made with all that excitement and preparation, and I see wasted time, to be honest. I see a momentum of what could have been. I see what should have been. Storm Connections was supposed to be a celebration. Instead it became like a funeral. And this video is just like us remembering what died. So yeah, happy anniversary Storm Connections. Thank you for the lesson and rest in peace. I'm never coming back to this BS again. Or maybe I should. Maybe it's not too late to drop that playthrough, you know what I'm saying? Let me know if y'all would watch like a playthrough on this game like 2 years later. I already know y'all not watching it. And you know what? Actually, I don't think it's okay for me to just like do this video and that's it. Like, they cannot get away with this. Like, we're making it a yearly tradition on this channel. Every time around mid-November, we're gonna come around and clown on Storm Connection. We did it last year, we're doing it this year, and we'll do it next year, and we'll keep on going. Maybe until Storm 5, even though I low-key don't want to see that because it might even be a bigger fumble. Like, imagine us looking at Storm 5 and being like, Connections was better. That would be crazy. Plus, this honestly worked perfectly for me because Brawlhalla usually has BCX around this time with its like super boring competitive gameplay, players who clearly only care about the bag, and Brawlhalla views are usually down around that time, so we'll use that time to clown on Naruto Storm Connections. Because they have not gotten treated poorly enough for how poorly they treated us. They need more BS.